brings us, ironically, to Eric Wynalda's speech. Oh, my God, Brett. What happened to Eric here? He went on a speaking spree here at the local NSCAA conference. I didn't get an invite to that. Did you?
No.
I think you're actually qualified for a because you're a youth director.
I've coached. I'm not a licensed coach, so that's probably the reason I didn't get my invite.
You know what? I'm not feeling like I missed much because I heard the speech of the event was Eric Wynalda just basically going off on MLS for, well, let's just start with some of the things that he said. Which, I mean, his big point was incentivize MLS. You need to pay these guys more and pay them when they score, pay them when they get assists, pay them.
That was the big thing, not necessarily pay them more. I mean, obviously, he talked about the, kids, the youth today saying, "Oh, I could play soccer, but I'm only going to make $42,000 a year or whatever."
Right.
But the incentive as far as, if they make it onto the field, they're getting a little extra cash. If they score a goal, they're getting extra cash. Basically saying, "Hey, if I want to make more money, it's up to me."
Yeah. But, I mean, he was all over the place. I mean, really, ADHD.
I got a headache. I got a headache from reading that. Oh, my God. I wasn't sure if he was, in the past, talking about some stories in the past, or it was just all over the place.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, we love you, but that was crazy stuff. That I mean, reading
we enjoyed your points on it.
Yeah.
But, man, it was all over.
And I think Dan Loney made a point of that in his piece as well, that, Wynalda's one of these guys, and he just kind of just lets it rip. And whatever comes out of his mouth comes out of his mouth. But let's look at some of the things that did come out of his mouth. I mean, I thought he was pretty mean to Freddie Adu. And we've been kind of harsh and critical of Freddie here. But, he said, hey, and I quote, "Will he be great someday? Probably not," he said. In fact, he went early on, I guess, to a DC United practice, and he said, Tom Sohn asked me, "What do I think of his play?" And I said, "He's playing so bad he might actually be really 13 years old," which is, pretty a big bust. And then he said, "I don't think there's been anybody that's ever really pushed that kid the right way. The environment never pushed him. And the expectation part is the same thing that happened with Josie Altidore." And he goes on really to say what's really the problem in with a lot of our youth players is they're coddled. And he goes on and he talks about when David Beckham was, picking up balls and fixing turf on the Manchester United field, and people told him he was shit. He was nothing. He was a nobody. And they break you. It's like the U.S. military. They break you down and then they build you up. You know what I mean? And what he's saying is that's not happening in U.S. soccer because all of our little youth stars, and we've talked about this plenty on the show, are coddled. They are coddled. And so when they go over to Europe and they get some criticism, they fall to pieces. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, in all honesty, he made a comment about Freddie that when he got drafted to DC United, he wasn't ready.
Yep.
And he came out and he had he scored some goals, he assisted some goals, and he had some decent performances here and there. But in all honesty, I don't think he was ready. I mean, I'm not just even referring just physically or just his attributes in general, but necessarily just mentally. And I think that's one thing that that Wynalda was pointing out is that this player wasn't ready to hit the level that he hit. And then on top of that, as you said, he wasn't pushed because as with him and Josie, these are the saviors of U.S. soccer.
Yeah, that was tough.
And it was just, it's asking a lot. And then, like you said, they are coddled.
Yeah,
they're not pushed. They're pushed, but they're not pushed as much as they should be. And they're not. It's like they go into this expecting, I'm going to be the star. I'm a future star. I'm going to be the star. And then. And I think that may have been beaten out, not literally, figuratively beaten out of them on his trip around Europe back to MLS.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. The one big line out of that really caused me to laugh was the hardest thing about being Freddie Adu, he said, is that you have to wait until you're 26 to get to drink legally. Anyhow, we had some jokes about that, and the dog has had a whole show on with Freddie Adu. Actually interviewed him, and that was the big punchline. But the dog and Eric Wynalda, as we all know, do not get along at all. Anyhow, they don't.
No, they don't.
They don't. It was over the.
That's why we haven't had him back on the show for a while.
That's right. The dog is banned from.
Don't want to piss people off.
Yeah, he's been banned from the straight red card. Anyhow, then Wynalda goes on to the MLS coaches, and he says, actually, the two best coaches in MLS were by default. Jason Christ and Dominic Kinnear, because he says if you leave it up to the MLS executives, they wouldn't know a good coach if it smacked them upside the head. But I'll let you comment on it in a second. But then he goes on and says guys like Steve Ralston would come down to the lobby of a hotel, and Wynalda would say, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Steve Ralston. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing, right? And he'd say, "I don't know." And I'd say, "What did your coach say, Steve?" And Steve would say, "He didn't talk to me." And I'd say, "What do you mean?" And that's when Wynalda says he realized that the coaching mentality is if I'm a coach and I engage in a conversation with my player, and at some point the player proves that they know more than the coach, then of course the coach doesn't want to have a conversation with the player, and that's completely ridiculous. You want to know why that's ridiculous? It's because Steve Ralston's coach was who? Stevie Nichols, right?
Yeah.
You're going to tell me Steve Ralston knows more about soccer and how to manage a soccer team than Steve Nichols? Really?
That was going to be my point right there. I thought you were going to take Wynalda's side on that.
Hell no!
But we're referring, his coach was Steve Nichols. I mean, come on.
It's not like Steve Nichols
played at a higher level than Ralston, although, we've made comments on this show that Ralston is one of those players that should have jumped the boat.
He should have. Yep.
But, now he's manager of New England. And we'll see. Him and Olsen, we'll see how they pan out and see if they do as well as Jason did with Real Salt Lake.
Yeah, and Wynalda was high on Jason Christ. I mean, but who isn't? That's so easy to say.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is, baby-faced little manager who, with no experience coaching or managing at all, and as Wynalda correctly points out, was given the job basically out of the blue. And then he goes into both the single table and promotion and relegation. And, oh, boy, of course, you and I agree, I think, that I would like a single table. But he says, and I agree, that MLS is very NFL-driven. And that's fine, and I don't really disagree with that. He seems to say that he would like PNR. He would like a single table. But, it's just not going to happen. And he's right. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I would like there to be the single table. And the reason why I would like there to be the single table is so that we don't have the matches that we have, like this upcoming season. I forgot what show I was listening to. I think it was Extra Time. But they talked about how, Chivas USA is going up to Seattle like 4 or 5 times. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's how are you supposed to sell the game? Some teams might not even see their big star players. They might, some teams might not see, Henry at their home. They may their team may play them at their home, but they may not see them at their home.
Right.
It's a balanced schedule is really all I was really talking about as far as the single table, and that's the whole point of it. But then again, they talk about how they want to drive up rivalries and drive up, they make traveling costs a little less. Yeah. But like I said, in all honesty, I mean, how many times can you sell a Chicago Columbus game? Yeah, they're supposed to be rivals, but the casual fan doesn't want to always come and see Columbus. They want to see other teams, and they want to see some of the big teams if they get the opportunity to.
Right. They want to see the Terry Henrys. They want to see, whether you like it or not, they want to see David Beckham.
Yeah.
They want to see Landon Donovan playing in their I just it's fine, but I think once you start comparing the NFL model to what really has made MLS successful in the last number of years, that's not what has been driving up the attendance. The attendance has been driven up in many ways, not just because of rivalries, but because some big shot star comes to town and you get the chance to knock him in his place. You know, and Thierry Henry's coming to town. We get a chance to knock him back down.
Chicago has a very, rivalry with FC Dallas.
Yep. Yeah.
But they're not in our division.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
well,
I understand their idea behind it, but it doesn't always work out that way.
We're not the NFL.
You know, LA and New York have that Battle of the Titans rivalry type thing. You know, the designated player versus designated player.
Yeah. We'll see how this works out. And you know what? A couple years from now, you know how MLS works, they may shift back. Yeah. They're all about shifting. Now, the great thing about this conference that we weren't invited to, the MLS Director of Communications, Will Coons, finally stood up because he had enough, I guess, of, what he considered to be misinformation from Wynalda. And he basically said, hey, I challenge you to a sword fight. No, he didn't say that.
A duel.
A duel. No, he said, listen, I think basically, Eric, you're going off base here. And they had a little argument about, the whole transfer system and the fact that MLS is making zero money off of that, and they're really not engaged in the business of the transfer season. So, anyhow, it all came down to basically, Wynalda saying, hey, I don't want to debate Nelson, who's kind of second command at MLS. I want Don. Now, there's something I would pay for. I would love to see a Wynalda Don Garber debate. How about you?
That'd be very entertaining.
Is that possible?
Yeah, I think it could be. As we saw in that interview, each Kuhn and Wynalda kept interrupting each other.
Yeah,
they kept cutting each other off to make their point. So it would be very entertaining to watch. He holds merit. We don't transfer many players out, but then again, Garber's come out flat out 100% and said, we're not a transferring league. We don't want to transfer our best players out. We want to keep our best players in and make our league the best league possible.
So the question is that good business? And what Wynalda's saying is that's not good business, because if you're Ajax in Holland, you're making a crap load of money selling players. I mean, they're doing very well. They're comfortable because they build up these players and they sell them for millions and millions and millions.
Here, and I agree that is definitely one route to go. Look at South America. A lot of the big clubs there, they have to sell, 2 or 3 of their players just to break even as far as their finances are concerned.
Yep.
Whereas look at a couple of leagues here in the United States. Look at NBA. Look at NHL.
Yeah.
You have, we're pulling in just as many people in, as far as attendance is concerned, if not more, in most cases. But they are making unbelievable amounts. In fact, NBA players are the highest paid athletes here in the U.S. as far as the big leagues are concerned. Yeah. And the reason why is TV rights. How do they have TV rights? How many players does NBA sell abroad? They don't, because they're the top league and people pay to the stations pay to have it on, the games on. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the idea that MLS is really looking forward to. We not necessarily keep our talent, but we want to keep our talent in house to improve the quality level of the game, and then we get more sponsors, we get better TV right deals. People will start watching the games on TV, because that's one of all those points was our TV, our the viewership, the ratings below.
Yeah,
and
they suck.
That's the thing. So I think that they're using the same point, but to fill different arguments.
Yeah, yeah. Probably best line of that night was Kuhn says, so transfer fees do not 100% go back to the league. That was not one of the 100% things he was talking about. That's a league. And Wynalda replies, thank you for correcting me, but 100% of zero is zero. And that's a good point. Very good point from Eric. We're really, if you're going to call this a business, then engage in the business.